Today's video is just a fun one, and let me first clarify, there is no objective way to make this list. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, especially when you're looking at slam dunks. So although I'm titling this video the top 20 greatest dunks in NBA history, it's really just my top 20 favorite based on how impressive they look to me. What I want to know is, how would your list differ from mine? There is a lot to choose from, and the honorable mentions list is going to be very, very long. I will say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this was the most difficult list I've ever had to make. And from the time I've spent looking around the internet, nobody's list is ever accepted or praised. They're always told how much of an idiot they are for how they ranked it. So understand, these are just my choices, and I want to hear yours. I'm looking at a variety of things: style, power, finesse, the context in which it happened, and even star power kind of helps if I'm being honest. So with all that being said, let's stop wasting time and get into the list. Number 20, Kobe Bryant on Dwight Howard. This one is absolutely iconic. The Mamba still had every bit of his athleticism, and he split the defenders and finished strongly over a rookie Dwight Howard, who never forgot that play for the rest of his career. Not only was there style and was there power in this play, but it was between two superstar players who would go on to be teammates and have quite the colorful history. So this one gets some extra points for a variety of reasons. Number 19, Shaquille O'Neal violating Dudley. This one was amazing. Shaq not only dunks the ball and finishes strongly, but he does his iconic image spreading his legs, violating Dudley, and then lands and shoves him to the ground. Even if this is just the 19th spot on my list for the greatest dunk of all time, it is certainly number one for being the most disrespectful dunk that I've ever seen. Number 18, Tom Chambers' dunk on Mark Jackson. From my time surfing the internet and seeing this highlight, this one seems to be quite divisive. It's a pretty basic dunk, and there isn't a tremendous amount of style, and yes, Tom Chambers is 6'10". But when you look at this dunk in slow motion, he seems to elevate even more after he hits Mark Jackson with his knee. And by the time he's actually flushing it down, he is way above the rim as he's completing the two-handed slam. Tom Chambers is already an underrated and underappreciated player, and this one especially right here is an all-timer that deserves to be recognized. Number 17, Baron Davis on AK-47. This was during the Warriors' famous We Believe season, and to me, this is the iconic capsulated moment that really symbolizes what that season meant to Warriors fans. The energy in the crowd was electric as he cocked it back and slammed it over the top of one of the best defenders in the entire league, who was much bigger than him. Baron Davis was an athletic freak, and this one that he gave us had us all shook back in the mid-2000s. Number 16, Blake Griffin on Timothy Mozgov. You guys all know this one. Blake Griffin was one of the most athletic players of his era, and he elevated way above Mozgov to complete this dunk. Not only did he just thunderously throw it in from several feet away, but it was how he grabbed Mozgov's head as he was doing it. Talk about embarrassing. Number 15, Derrick Rose's two-handed slam on Goran Dragic. This was during the peak excitement of an athletic Derrick Rose, as he was fast and explosive, and to me, no single play better encapsulates that than this dunk. I love the way he thunderously flushed it down with two hands, and it seemed like his descension took forever just based on how high he got above the rim. Number 14, Ja Morant on January 14th, 2023. Ja is ridiculously athletic, and he has plenty of these types of dunks. But as far as his dunks go, this one is my favorite. The way he cuts to the basket, the way he takes the ball back so ridiculously far, more than you think he was capable of, and then finished it emphatically. I don't know if there's any player in NBA history who takes the ball back further before slamming it down than Ja Morant does. Give us some time and let this one age in our memory, and who knows, it might even climb up the list. Number 13, LeBron James on Yusuf Nurkic. This was probably the angriest dunk from LeBron that I've ever seen, as he cut to the basket and absolutely posterized Yusuf Nurkic. This one was special for a couple reasons. For one, LeBron was starting to get up there in his age at this point. So although you could see him doing this in his early Cleveland days or in his Miami days, a lot of people didn't think he had this kind of dunk still left in the tank. Beyond that, it wasn't just how hard LeBron dunked it, but it was where he jumped from. It had the distance, it had the elevation, and it had the attitude, all coming together to make one of the greatest dunks of all time. Number 12, Scottie Pippen on Patrick Ewing. This was during the time that Michael Jordan was retired, and in that 1994 season, the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks rivalry was at its all-time peak. Scottie Pippen converted this dunk over one of the best rim protectors in the entire league, Patrick Ewing. And not only did he embarrass him, but then he shoved him and walked over him, just adding to the intensity and the playoff atmosphere. Then after that play is done, he goes and he walks by Spike Lee, who's basically the New York Knicks mascot, and talks some trash to him as well. This was probably the most badass and iconic moment of Scottie Pippen's career. Number 11, Dwayne Wade on Kendrick Perkins. Every once in a while, you see a dunk that has tremendous beauty and tremendous power, and this was one of them. Dwayne Wade was so quick, and then he made a tremendous spin move and made a two-handed slam that absolutely destroyed Kendrick Perkins. And he finished off the highlight with a goofy yet memorable dance move. Number 10, Julius Erving rocking the cradle on Michael Cooper. This was an iconic moment in the NBA Finals, and Erving stole the ball and finished the dunk over the top of one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the game. Not only was Julius so good at gliding through the air, but the way he tucked the basketball and finished over the top was something that anybody who was watching at that time will never forget. Number 9, Anthony Edwards on John Collins. It's hard to rank this one early on, but without question, it was the greatest dunk in this most recent season, as Edwards thunderously and powerfully completed this dunk that sent shockwaves all over social media. He ended up screwing up his finger on the play, but given the fact that he won the Dunk of the Year award for that dunk, and given the fact that people will be seeing that replay over and over again for as long as we live, I think it was worth it. Number 8, Gerald Green's windmill lob. This one was awesome. I understand it isn't a poster, and I understand that there was really no interference between him and the rim. But still, as lob passes go, this is one of the all-time greats. It isn't just that he took a lob and he made it a windmill, but there's that iconic instant replay where you can see his head well above the rim. This guy was an athletic freak who had some of the greatest hops that I've ever seen, and when you finish it with this windmill that he had, it certainly deserves a spot in my top 10. Number 7, LeBron James on Jason Terry. This one is iconic for several reasons. For one, this was a revenge statement for LeBron James, who was dunking on Jason Terry, who had once embarrassed him in the 2011 NBA Finals. Now LeBron had just angrily posterized him, and even stood over and stared at him to really drive the point home. For me, this is the greatest and biggest statement dunk of LeBron James's career. Number 6, Vince Carter on Alonzo Mourning. You know, it's funny, because Vince Carter's peak as a dunker was certainly in his time in Toronto, but if you ask me, his best in-game NBA dunk was when he destroyed Alonzo Mourning, who just happens to be one of the greatest rim protectors of all time. Yes, the dunk was nice, but the lead up to the dunk is really what completes it, as Carter was a tremendous ball handler, and he put the ball behind his back before driving to the lane and absolutely embarrassing Mourning. Number 5, Kobe's reverse dunk on Minnesota. You guys know this one. It was when Kevin Harlan iconically made the call saying that Kobe just sucked the gravity out of the target center. For most people, this one usually isn't ranked this high, but for me, it's just how difficult and stylish it was. Usually you don't see reverse dunks with this kind of power, and when you look at the baseline view, just look at where Kobe took off from and where he ended up completing the dunk. Look at the way he had to contort his body just to make this happen. And on top of this, Kobe was also dealing with a significant shoulder injury at this time. So not only was the dunk just impressive, but it was completely unexpected at this point. Number 4. Michael Jordan jamming it on Patrick Ewing. This was just as Michael was starting to make his ascension and started winning NBA championships. And this play featured many of the things that made Michael so great. His tremendous ball handling, his shiftiness, and he already burned 2 other guys on his way to Patrick Ewing. Making that move on the baseline is absolutely impressive. But to then complete the dunk over Patrick Ewing, elevating that much higher than the 7-foot center, is utterly remarkable. And I still remember to this day how much the commentators were losing his mind after he made that dunk. I think we've got a bit used to this one in the years since, simply because we've seen this dunk from Jordan so many times. But when you look at it for all that it is, and for how difficult it was to complete, it certainly deserves a top 5 spot in my mind. Number 3. Shawn Kemp on Alton Lister. Remember how I said Shaq had the most disrespectful dunk in NBA history? Well, this one certainly joins it in the top 3. Kemp was one of the most thunderous and mean finishers at the rim. He was always dunking the ball as if the rim owed him money. And this one was no different. There was plenty of lead up to the dunk, as he ran up, tucked the ball in his arm, and then finished it thunderously on Alton Lister as that Seattle crowd was buzzing like they normally were. Then he had the audacity to double point the finger at Lister while he was sitting on his butt after he had just been embarrassed. This one wasn't just impressive and disrespectful, but it is iconic. Number 2. Blake Griffin on Kendrick Perkins. Speaking of power dunkers, it doesn't get much better than Blake Griffin, as he was absolutely destroying the rim early in his career. This one was during their Lob City days off of a great pass from Chris Paul, and what ensued was one of the most powerful dunks that I've ever seen. It's almost like he elevated, made body contact with Perkins, and then elevated even further before finally flushing it down. The energy in that building was insane. And thanks to Blake Griffin and the rest of Lob City, there was genuinely some moments where I was more excited to watch Clippers basketball than Lakers basketball. And I say that as a Lakers fan. Number 1. DeAndre Jordan off of the CP3 lob. I've seen this one get the number 1 spot on many other lists, and I'm telling you, when it went down and when it first happened, it was a viral internet moment. Everyone was talking about it. I get it, DeAndre Jordan isn't necessarily a star player, and he is a big guy dunking on a little guy. But as far as posters go, this is the absolute pinnacle of what they're meant to be, as it was ferocious, thunderous, disrespectful, and he had left his defender on the floor as if he had just been jumped. Everybody was reacting to it on the court, in the crowd, and on the internet. For me, this is the cream of the crop. This is the poster dunk that everyone is aiming for when they're attacking the rim. And personally, I think it's just funny that the Clippers have the top 2 spots. Here is my long list of honorable mentions. And trust me, I even know that there's many other great dunks that should have been on this list but are not. There's just too many to tackle in simply one video. But let me know, which dunks were not in my top 20 but should have been? Also, how would you move the dunks, higher or lower on my list? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.